Hey everybody, welcome to the channel, Van Waters Labradors. I am Vernon, and we are going to start the next video on how to choose the right breeder. So this is a big conversation. This is probably going to make some folks not very happy, because we're going to reveal on how, as you're shopping around and you're looking for a breeder that is going to provide your next puppy or your next member of the family, how do you go about, where do you find these breeders, and how do you go about finding these good breeders that are out there? And it's going to kind of cross into a little bit on the style of puppy. So the first questions we ask ourselves is what style do I want? That's going to direct us on what breeder we're looking for. Okay, so do we want an English style, an American style, and or a British style of a lab dog or a lab puppy? Okay, so I'm going to explain to you, and this is how you are going to minimize what breeders you are dealing with or what breeders you're looking for or looking at. Okay, first thing is, your breeder should know what the three styles of labs are: English, American, and British. Okay, now there are overlaps or overlays, however you want to say that, of these three styles of Labradors. Your English style is known, we're going to go for looks first on these three, and then we'll go into personalities. The English are known for a larger frame. They're known for having the big heads, big characteristics, the otter tail. They're the style that you will see in the show ring. So when you look at a pedigree, and we're going to get into that a little bit here, you're looking on that pedigree and you're looking at these championships on these pedigrees. If you're looking at a certified pedigree, on the front of that pedigree, it's going to say a CH. That is a confirmation show championship or a confirmation championship. That means that dog is English. It is impossible for an American or a British lab to win that title, because they will get automatically disqualified because they don't meet the standards of an English lab. Okay, the otter tail, and so forth. Your English lab is bigger in size. They're going to weigh 100 pounds very, very easily, especially the males. Okay, your Americans are streamlined. They're taller, they got very long legs, aerodynamic, real narrow faces. They will generally weigh, 65, 75 pounds. Some people will cross these two, the English and the Americans. Many breeders cross them the wrong way because they create dogs that are extremely long-legged or extremely short-legged. And they do what's called conformation breeding. Again, a lot of people ain't gonna like me talking about this. It's gonna reveal kind of what they're doing, which is a no-no, and it's gonna help you as a consumer choose the right breeder for you. Okay. The next thing is the British. The British are known. There's a couple genetic lines that are there. I'll mention a few on the American side. The Americans really deal with the Kellogg and the Candlewood bloodlines, or the Candlewood and the Kellogg genetics, if we could say it that way. My personal preference, some may argue with me on this, and that's okay, but this is my personal preference of my experience. And that's what all these videos are based off, is my experience and my opinion. Please note that. But the Candlewood are known for being awesome mothers. They're known for being just wonderful. If I could throw a name out there, Mary Howley has done a terrific job in breeding an American lab, the Candlewood lines. That is just absolutely phenomenal. She's won many titles and awards, and she's been She's just a wonderful breeder. Has a wonderful operation going on. And her American lines and that Candlewood is what I've used in the past. They'll honor a dog. They're awesome mothers. Their tolerance is just superb. A child can crawl over that dog and it's just unreal. I've had the Kellogg lines. I've used them in past. I quickly stopped using them. Again, this could be argued based off your experience. Some breeders might have had good luck with the Kellogg lines. They're very aggressive dogs. They're not so good, again, my experience, not so good in the motherhood aspect. Again, just my experience. I've owned probably half a dozen Kellogg dogs. Great in the field, however. If you want a hunting dog, aggressive hunting dog, Kellogg is the dog. But Candlewood is just as good, if not better, in my opinion. Okay. Now, British. British are smaller dogs. They're sometimes confused to be an American lab. And again, it depends on how they're bred. But the British are typically smaller, 55, 65 pounds. They're bred to be small. They're bred to be lightning bolts, super fast. So as you move on and you're going into this purchasing, adopting, however you want to verbalize that terminology, as you move forward and you're looking for this new member of the family, it's not a coincidence your behavior now. So, you know, the puppy's aggressive, the puppy's laid back, the puppy looks this way, the puppy genetically is this way. It's not a coincidence. You know, maybe 25, 30 years ago, the breeders have been like, well, you know, it's, you know, I used to hear the terminology when people would call me up, they say, well, I want a male with a blocky head. Well, they're asking for either an English lab or they're asking for an American lab that's been bred to the English that has the nice flat top heads. So again, how do we choose the right breeder? They understand the 3 different styles of Labradors. And again, remember, these different styles have been crossed through the years. So that's why we got labs that are 150 pounds. We got labs that are 55 pounds. They've all been crossed one way or another. Not all, let me rephrase that. They've been crossed, some, majority, have been crossed so that they can get these different sizes. Or they can get the different appearances. Like in the English world, they will breed to maybe shorten the tail or broaden the skull, get the head bigger, shorten the legs, and that's called conformation breeding. It's not a good term, it's not ideal. Okay, now that being said, the next step. So the breeder should know the 3 styles of labs. They should be able to explain them thoroughly to you. Second thing is the breeder that you're dealing with needs to understand their pedigrees of their dogs. So when you call them up, hello, this is such and such breeder, kennel, such and such Labrador, such and such. Even if you're looking for a German Shepherd or any other styles of dogs, it should be the same idea. This is such and such. By the way, could you tell me and explain to me what genetics or what bloodlines you have in your kennel? If they look at, you know, if there's, or even if you're looking at them, you're there at their property, and they say, oh, I'd have to look that up and go in the house or look that up. If this is information that is not readily available on the top of their brain, at least some information about this, like, for example, you come to me and say, hey, Vernon, what kind of dogs do you have? Well, I will give you an hour or so layout of what kind of dogs I have, where they come from, where these breeders come from, how long they've been breeding, how long and where are they. For example, I mentioned Mary Howley. She is a bird dog breeder. She breeds for bird dogs, even though Candlewoods are wonderful, wonderful companion dogs, but she breeds for the hunting dogs. She trains them that way. So I know that background. She's been going since 1956. And on the show side, there's other breeders out there that some have passed away, but there's one particularly, I won't mention no names, but she started in 57. And we should know this as a breeder. We should know where our dogs come from. We should have a history of these dogs in our mind, and we should understand the pedigrees. So like if you're dealing with an English dog, they should have Borodor, Dickenal, Ridgeview, even Van Waters, as far as that's concerned. These bloodlines are genetics in their pedigrees. They should have these memorized in their mind. They don't have to have a whole 5 generation of every dog in their kennel memorized, but they need to know what they're dealing with and how they're dealing with it. Because here's the important part. If they don't know the pedigree of their dog and what that dog and they're dealing with that dog, then how do you know that they're breeding that dog to the correct dog? Or how do they know if they don't know their pedigrees, which is the first level of this, of getting into breeding the dog as a breeder, how do they know that the dog they're breeding to is even compatible with the dog they're breeding to? So how does that female over here, if they don't know their pedigrees as a first step of comparing these dogs together, how do they know that that dog's not even related to this dog over here? Or how do they know that dog's not a sister to this male over here? Again, this is elementary for a breeder. And I'm just weeding out some of the junk, so to speak, or these backyard breeders, or even some of these hobby breeders that some of you don't even want to deal with because you're going to have a lot of problems. Now, some of these guys and gals out of ignorance breed, and they actually produce beautiful, wonderful puppies out of ignorance. They have no idea what they're doing, and they actually are producing great pups out of luck. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to just buy a puppy and just lottery on it, or that affects my finances in my pocketbook. And I think you feel the same way on that. That's why we are very selective on the terminology. We are looking for a reputable breeder, right? So we're looking for that breeder that would support what we support as we think about a good breeder. We want to buy from someone that we think is a good breeder, reputable, someone that's doing the job right. Okay, so we know the styles, we understand our pedigrees. Now going into that as the pedigree, are the dogs compatible to be bred to each other? Ask them that. How do they know that these dogs are compatible to be bred to each other? Or let's give an example. If we have Snow Bear, which is the male, is being bred to Starlight, which is the female, how is that breeder going to know that Snow and Starlight are breedable or compatible? Especially if they only have one male. So if they're a hobby breeder and they got one male and they've got 4 or 5 females, how do they know that that male's even compatible to be bred with them females? The answer is genetic testing. So if your breeder can provide you genetic testing results, or you can ask them, say, what are the genetics? So let's back up a little bit. You call the breeder, you've already gone through the styles, you've gone through the pedigrees. Now you say, the compatibility of your dogs, are they compatible to each other? Which ones can and cannot be? Or the ones that I'm looking at as far as buying a puppy from, are they compatible to be bred to each other? They say, well, of course they are. Then you say, well, how is that? Or how do you know? Well, I've done my genetic test. Now you are on your way to finding a phenomenal breeder. But it doesn't stop there. Okay, now we have compatibility. And let me explain what that compatibility is. So we have different genetic tests, hereditary diseases that are in these dogs that we can test for now. Okay, so we're going to use science to our advantage. And every breeder should be doing this. If you're a breeder and you're watching this video and you're not doing this and you don't know what I'm talking about previous to what I've said, shame on you. So stop monkeying around and stop trying to take advantage of other people's wallets and different things like that and trying to make a buck, and get down to business and do it right. A little harsh, but it's the truth. Okay, now, so I'm going to use what everybody's familiarized, and one of the biggest genetic issues is EIC. is exercise-induced collapse. If a breeder takes a male that is affected with the EIC and he breeds that to a female that is also affected with that EIC, and he doesn't know that, your baby that you're buying is going to be affected with that EIC, exercise-induced collapse. What does that mean? What does that look like to you? When you're seeing your dogs and they're running around and your dog's affected with this, what happens? Well, your dog is going to be 5, 6 years old, 4, perhaps, maybe younger or older, give or take. It's not the same on every dog. One symptom of this is that they will get exerted, hot, and they'll run and just their back legs will completely go out. Or they completely just pass out. And that's something to look for. If these breeders don't know that, if they haven't tested their dogs genetically through blood work, and for you breeders that are watching, you can go through paw prints, you can go through Animal Genetics in Tallahassee, Florida, you can go through DDC in Ohio. The DDC is what I use, and they have, in my opinion, some of the quickest response times, and they email you the results. I'm very happy with that company, by the way. Not endorsed by them, but I'm just mentioning that just for the sake of, for those breeders that don't know what to do or go through, DDC is a wonderful company from Ohio. They will send you free packets. You do the swab, send it in, pay your money, and you get your results in, I don't know, I think a week. It's been a while since I've had to do it because all my dogs have been tested for quite some time. So that's just one example. Okay, so as you are buying your puppy and you see this EIC in front of you, or they're talking about this EIC, and you look down at mom and dad, so here's Snow, Bear, and here's Starlight, and Starlight is a carrier now, and mom is also a carrier. Now you have risk of a carrier or an affected. So typically out of 10 puppies in that situation, majority of them pups, I shouldn't say majority, half of them could be affected, half of them could be carriers. Okay, and this is the worst case potentially. Ideally, these dogs would be dad would be a carrier and mom would be clear. That means you would only consist of carriers, or both mom and dad are clear. That's the perfect world. That dad is clear of EIC, mom is clear of EIC. Now you know that you're getting a dog clear by lineage, which if it could go back further than that, or direct parents, that you are now clear of this genetic issue. There's tons of them. Sorry, my phone had a call coming in, so my video stopped. So hopefully that didn't disturb anything. Apologize for that. It's still going, good. Clear and clear. So that, and then the other tests, there's like 13 to 21 of them that you could test for, genetically speaking, blood work, dew claw, swab of the gum line, so forth. Send those in, get those degenerating menopathy, PRA, PRA-CD. There's multiples of them, HPK. Those are the ones just right off the top of my head. But again, the more tests done, the more likely that your dog is going to be healthy from these hereditary diseases, because they can test for them. And there's more coming out as time goes on. There's more and more tests coming out. So those are some of, that's the next step on how to choose a really good breeder. Okay, it's not done. And I could spend hours. I'm already at 18, almost 19 minutes on this. So I'm gonna try to keep this short for the sake of you guys watching me and just talk. The next most important, and this what we talked about already is going to weed out a ton of breeders for you. The next what we're going to talk about, and you could start with this number one if you wanted to, and this will weed out probably at least 50% of breeders, because I've done it myself. I'll call up breeders and ask. You say, how has the puppy, or what kind of vaccines have the puppy been given, or what was the puppy given as vaccines is related and dewormer, and ask them that. Now, a lot of you are going to say, well, that's really no big deal for the breeder to know that. Well, of course it is. It's very important that the breeder understands what vaccines are given and why they're given and when they're given. Because if they don't have no knowledge when to give a vaccine and what they're giving, your puppy could be not vaccinated enough, or it could be over vaccinated. So it's very important on that. I have personally ran into situations that my veterinarian was vaccinating my dog with multiple strands of different shots, and these different shots were carrying the same strand in both of them shots. So basically what I'm saying is they would have been overdosed, and I've had this happen several times from different veterinarians. If I did not know and I did not educate myself what my vaccines were and what I was giving or what the veterinarian was giving, we would have had a problem, potentially, okay? So it's very important what vaccines are given, when are they given, why are they given? Okay, so you call a breeder up and you're talking, you've gone through all this big spiel, and you say, well, where are we at on vaccines? What needs to be given, and so forth. Most of your breeders are going to say, well, they've been given their puppy shots. Make them explain to you what in the world a puppy shot is. Multiple people, I've dealt with this over the phone myself when I'm dealing with other breeders, or I will call other breeders just to see what their their verbiage, their way of talking is over the phone, because I want to see what other people are dealing with. So I call them and I say, so how's the puppy been vaccinated? Why? With what? So forth. Puppy shots. Well, how many? I mean, because my puppy I'm going to be buying from you is 8 weeks old, ready to go, right? Yep. So how many rounds have they been given? Just one. Well, they should have had 2. And if not 3. And we're going to cover those for you. And I'm going to explain to you what those are. The first one early on is a Bordetella shot. That's your kennel cough. That's a nasal. So they hydrate the vaccine. So you have 2 bottles. It's usually, if they use Novavax, it's in a purple bottle, and they hydrate. Hydrate means you're taking the fluid out of one, putting in the other bottle, squirting the fluid in there, shake it up, okay? Once it's shook up and it's hydrated now, the dry, the liquid goes into the dry, hydrates the dry. So it's wet, it's a liquid, it's mixed, hydrated. It's pulled back into the syringe. The needle is pulled off, and then a yellow cap is put on that has like it's a nasal spray basically, and it's stuck into the nasal of the dog and sprayed in the dog, a nasal cavity, and that is your Bordetella. That is supposed to be given between 3 to 6 weeks old. Typically it's 3 to 4 weeks, depending. Everybody's different on this. This isn't like it's got to be this way, but this is typically how they do that. The second thing is if you're dealing with just 2 vaccines, if they completely skip the Bordetella shot or the kennel cough shot, vaccine rather, if they're going with just a puppy shots, your puppy shot is a 5-strand shot. So it's a DAPPV, distemper, antivirus, parafluenza, and parvo. They should know what that stands for. Okay, if that breeder don't know what that stands for, they probably don't know a lot of other things that they should be knowing about breeding, about taking care of the dog. They're just as blind as someone trying to buy a good dog from supposedly a good breeder, right? So they need to know, if you're a breeder, you need to know your vaccines and understand what you're giving, when you're giving, why you're giving. Okay, if you're giving lepto, that's supposed to come at 14 to 16 weeks. Again, it depends on the veterinarian, depends on the breeder, it also depends on the dog, but it goes in increments. Deworming programs. They need to understand a good deworming program. There's fenbendazole, there's Safeguard, there's Panacur. Panacur is a prescribed from the veterinarian dewormer. It's a powder. Your Safeguard is a non-prescription, and it's a liquid. It's oral. And your fenbendazole is also oral. It's a liquid. Your Panacur and your Safeguard has the same base ingredient. It's fenbendazole. Okay? Your breeder should know that. How often has your puppy been dewormed? How often has mom been dewormed? Because if mom is with the puppies for 6 to 8 weeks, or less or more, give or take, the mom needs to be dewormed just as the babies need to be dewormed. And why is that? Well, they're parasites. And as they're having stools, these parasites are coming out. and they're laying eggs and so forth. They can reproduce. Well, if babies have worms, mama probably has worms too. If mama has worms, she's giving them to the babies. And so they need to be regularly cleaned up in the kennel or in the home, wherever these puppies are being kept, cleaned often and dewormed often. You say, how much? How often should these dogs be dewormed? From the time they're born, you give them 2 weeks. Now, every breeder's a little bit different on how much they deworm their mother. So this isn't like concrete, okay? But this is just a guideline that I'm giving to you how to choose the right breeder. Your dewormer on a puppy should be every 2 weeks. So when the puppies reach 2 weeks of age, they're dewormed. And then every 2 weeks after that until they leave the breeder. So 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 14 weeks, stop. Everything typically stops between 12 to 14 weeks old. And then we let them get older than that. So they're properly dewormed. That's deworming. And vaccinated. Now we're going to let them build up immunity because they've had all the vaccines. Now we're going to create immunity, a stronger immunity. They're older, their immunity is stronger, help with the vaccines so they can grow and they can develop themselves. What I've just explained to you, if a breeder cannot explain that thoroughly or even basically, and I haven't even gone in depth on it, that's not a good breeder. If they can't provide you in-depth situation like that, like we just discussed, that's not a good breeder. Okay? Socialization of a puppy. And we talked about this a little while ago, and this is why we do what we do with our puppies. And as we train our dogs and so forth, it kills me to see all these dogs being sold in the market right now. And they're going to homes, and it's, I'm not going to try to get very personal, and I'm not going to try to get very rude or crude here, but a lot of these dogs are ending up in shelters, and it drives me crazy, and it should you. So how do we fix that problem? How do we take care of this issue? Well, the first thing that we could do is get from good breeders that know what they're doing and that select good families to take their puppies, and that these puppies have training so that when these dogs are 6 months old, the mom and dad of these dogs they're just going crazy because these dogs are not doing what they need to be doing. They've judged this dog off the past dog that they've had. Believe me, trust me when I say this, I spend hours with people on the phone with that same thing. They judged the past dog. The dog was perfect in the past. Well, they've had that dog for who knows how many years, and they don't remember the puppy stages. And so they get involved, and now they got this new puppy, and they just don't remember how much training it was, the consistency that they had to have. Perhaps they were younger, more diligent with the puppy, and now they're distracted with work perhaps, or with the pandemic. They were home, now they're not. The dog's 6 to 8 months old, they can't handle it. They're too embarrassed to say, hey, I need help from a trainer. That's why we're going to be doing what we're doing, so that you at home can watch these videos and train your dog. Because most of the time these dogs are in shelters because of 2 reasons. A, lack of training, and B, financially. And you might have some other situations you know of that I'm not aware of, but that's typically why they're in there. And we got to do better than that. We are better than that as a society. But how many of us are going to step up to the plate and say, hey, you know what? I'm done with breeding. I'm going to start training. Or I'm not going to produce this many puppies this year, and I'm going to really focus on the well-being of this puppy. A $500, $800 puppy, a Labrador, let me say it that way, a Labrador, you don't know what you're getting. And these are the same dogs that end up in the shelters. The shelters are filling up. And I made a warning about this earlier on Facebook and so forth. So again, it's very, very, very important that we choose a good breeder. Very important. And that, number one, first of all, before you even start looking for a puppy and looking for that good breeder, is that, and most of my families will contest to this if you would talk to all of them, is that I always tell them, you have to be ready. You know, if you're in a marriage, that everyone involved in the family or in the marriage is on the same page. Because if, you know, this person or that person, he or she wants a dog and he or she does not want a dog, guess what? We've got problems. And when problems start occurring in the family with the dog, we're gonna have I told you so type of attitudes, and then who suffers from that? The dog. Not fair to the dog. So that's what this is all about, is the dog. And then you families. So good breeders. But before that, please take the time. Don't rush out and buy a dog because Junior says, hey, I want a dog for my birthday, and he's 4 years old, 5 years old, or 7 years old. Please don't rush out and buy a dog unless he can prove to you that he will be faithful, because at the end of the day, you're going to be doing the chores. So again, I know I'm being very forward when I say some of this stuff, but we got to be this way. Someone's got to be this way so that we as a society can get these dogs out of the humane societies and all these shelters. They don't even go there in the first place. So that's my whole intent behind this, is to develop an atmosphere in our country as a whole that me and others can influence others, and you as a consumer to know what you're doing when you go into this. You know, this ain't a t-shirt that doesn't fit right and you take it back to wherever you purchased it from. This is a 14, 15-year commitment. It's huge, huge. So we are going to conclude this video. Please like the video, subscribe to our channel. Please hit the bell, turn on your notifications so that you can get the next one. I hope I did not bore you with all this information. If you got any questions, hit it in the comments below. You can actually look up on my Facebook page and you could call me personally. I will take the time to answer your questions. You don't have to buy a puppy that's trained for me. I want the right puppy for you. So if that means you buy it from somewhere else, then so be it. But I want to help you. I want you to find that right dog. So if you got questions, I want you to call me. If you have, you go into a breeder and you're talking to them and a little caution flag pops up, a red flag pops up, and I'm not sure if this is right, call me. It's on my Facebook page. I'm sure you can look it up, find my number. You can email me, you can message me through Messenger, or put a comment in the section below here on YouTube on our channel. I appreciate everybody, all the subscribers that we've had. We're gonna work hard to get to this, to the channel, build this channel up, and to make a difference in our communities and our nation if possible. But I can only do what I can handle myself, and make the beginning myself so that I can do my part. So hope you can do your part, and we'll see you on the next video.